Gaelic football on Off the Ball.
With AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out #TheToughest for more.
Now then, Gaelic Football Championship, we are cooking. It's never been better. So it really has taken a massive upturn, it's fair to say, over the past fortnight, and it's about to get a whole lot more exciting this weekend, because on Saturday Kerry and Tyrone is an All-Ireland quarter-final to savour at 3:45, followed by Armagh against Monaghan at 6 o'clock, both on GAA Go. And then on Sunday at 4 o'clock we'll have Dublin against Mayo, 4 o'clock RTE. Before that, Derry against Cork at 1:45, also an RTE. That is because weekend just gone, Galway dumped out of the championship by Mayo by a single point, 110 to 12 points in Salthill. And then Saturday, the three games, well, two of them were 1 point games. Cork beat Roscommon by a point, 114 to 16 points. Monaghan beat Kildare with the last minute kick, 111 to 13. And then Tyrone didn't quite grow beards, but they have straightened themselves up, you think, just in time for the business end, and they will be a threat. 8-point win against Donegal. Very happy to say Darran O'Sullivan with us. Hello.
Hey Joe, how are things?
Good. Have you cheered up a bit, so?
I'm in great form.
Colm Boyle with us as well. Hello.
I'm great, Joe.
Darran, this is a bit more like it.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of looking forward to the start. It's a real start to the championship now. I think coming. I think we got a taste of things to come last weekend, and yeah, look, I think the draw we got, I think everyone's pretty happy with that. It's guaranteed to be good games, surely. So no, it's all good now. I think we're looking forward to the weekend.
Well, we'll talk about some of the games of the weekend in just a moment, but it's amazing. I don't know what your sense was, Darran. Tyrone do their thing against Donegal and do it in fine fashion, and the Canavans look really good. Dara had 4 points from playing the first half. Rory weighs in with 1-1. We all know they have just the tools and almost the mindset, maybe more importantly, to turn an average season around and go and win an All-Ireland. And it does feel, and I guess here's the question, and feel free to dig into your own experience, it does feel like almost more than any other team in the country, the name Tyrone unnerves Kerry footballers more than any other county.
Yeah, I do you know what? It's a funny one. When you're in the bubble as a footballer, it doesn't. You're actually looking forward to it. You never actually think negatively about it. But when you get out of it and you hear all the side talk and the newspaper and the radio stuff, obviously the history is there, but it had changed, I think, in previous years. And obviously when Tyrone won the All-Ireland a couple of years back, I think the fact David Clifford went off injured that day kind of derailed Kerry, but it's just got such a spiky history to it. I think this is the game Tyrone would have wanted more than Kerry. I think when Tyrone's got the draw, they'd be delighted. I'm not sure about Kerry, how happy they'd be about it, but I definitely think Tyrone are happy with it.
Yeah. What do you think the mood in the two respective camps? Colm, Tyrone looked at that and licked their lips a touch, in so much as you can when it's Kerry, to be fair.
Yeah, I think Darran has a point. I think Tyrone would be happy, but at the same time they know that they are going to have to lift things majorly as well and bring that performance that you're talking about that they probably haven't done in 2 years now. Like, you have to remember, Joe, they were a kick of the ball away from being out of the championship 2 weeks ago against Westmeath, or last weekend against Westmeath. So it's such fine margins here we're talking about. Yes, they looked very, very good there Saturday evening against Donegal, but Donegal were abject, to say the least. We'll probably come to that in a little while, but what a game that is to look forward to. And Darren's 100% right, between Monaghan and Tyrone, Jack O'Connor would have absolutely preferred to be facing Monaghan this weekend. But on the other side of that, if Kerry can get over this, maybe this is the jump that they need to get their season fully going and fully get their confidence back and get their mojo back. So the winner of this game is going to be in a really good place going into the semi-final. Okay,
so you're putting a lot of the 118 to 13 point scoreline at Donegal's door here.
Yeah, I thought they were really poor, Joe. Really, really poor. Right from the off, I just felt like they were never... Mike Finnerty made a comment before the game started in commentary that Donegal won the toss and opted to play against the breeze. And I'm thinking to myself, you're at home Saturday evening game in Ballybuffet, surely you want to get the crowd on your side. attack Tyrone, try and get in front of them early. You know, you're the underdog going into this game. Put them under pressure and see what the response is. But they have to play against the breeze, make a really poor start to the game. They concede a goal chance right from the throw-in. Rory Canavan comes straight down on Sean Patton, and then they concede a goal a couple of minutes later from a Sean Patton mistake. And it just never looked like they were going to recover after that. Tyrone looked like they'd far too much legs for them out around the middle of the pitch. Colin Kilpatrick and Brian Kennedy really ran the show around the middle. The boys at the back, Michael McKiernan, you know, Matt and me, they ran Paddy McBrearty up the pitch any chance they got, and they'd way too much, far too much. I think Donegal got a couple of things wrong in that regards. I mentioned the wind. I think Owen Gallagher as well had to pick up Darran O'Sullivan from the start of the game. Now, you mentioned he kicked 4 points there in the first half. Playing against that breeze, Tyrone with the breeze. I think Owen Gallagher ends up picking Myler, who actually gets man of the match, but I think from a scoring point of view, it was a huge ask for Mark Hearn to hold Canavan. He's one of the top 3 or 4 forwards in the country at the minute. I think them couple of things at the start just was kind of the signal of what was to come for Donegal, I think.
Yeah, okay. So like there is a degree when I say Tyrone and they're back Darran on the basis of that performance, there's probably too much of a weighting put on what they've done in other years, and so that automatically means, well, there'll be this lean mean machine again in Croke Park. Maybe that's too much of a stretch.
Yeah, look, I suppose they can only beat what's in front of them, and I think Colm's right. Donegal, they were poor in the day, and look, I think Donegal have done well to give themselves some bit of a season after everything that went on. But I think we talked about it last week and we mentioned the word nastiness, and I think Tomas might have mentioned it last night. They did look hungrier in defence. So in terms of just concentrating their own game, not reading too much into Donegal and what they did or didn't bring to the table, I just think they did look like they were more tuned in. They did look like they were ready for knockout football, Tyrone. No, I'm not going to read too much into the performance because, like Colm said, Donegal didn't bring much. But when you're looking at individuals and how they were playing, and then as a unit, they were tackling in numbers, they were breaking at pace. In fairness to Darran Canavan, he just looks like a different player this year. He looks like he's matured. He looks like one of these forwards has a chip on his shoulder who is just enjoying destroying defenders, and every score he's enjoying it. He's giving it the fist pumps. He looked so dangerous. I think he got a point. I can't remember, was it first or second half? I think it was second half, where he turned your man down the line. Like there was no space down the sideline at all, and cut in and then cut across him and shot it over with the left. It was just a beautiful score. He gave it the fist pump after, but it was a brilliant score. And I remember thinking when he was getting the ball, he's going to get shouldered out over the line here. How he stayed in and skipped up the line. Yeah, he just looks hungry. He looks like a fellow who's really comfortable in his game at the moment. And you're adding McCurry there, the two of them inside. And Matty Donnelly's just doing what Matty Donnelly's been doing for 10 years. They just have, like I think it was mentioned as well a few times, they have good balance at the moment. But the thing I thought they were missing for the last year and a half was that bit of nastiness, that streak. But they seem to have a bit of it back the weekend. And look, every time they see the green and gold jersey, they're one of these teams that I think every time they see Kerry, it's like, right, we need to prove that we are better than them, or we're as good as them, that we should be in the same bracket. And look, they always have that chip on their shoulder with us, and it brings out the best in them. It brings out, when I say the best in them, the nastiness, which is a hunger, a compliment to them. It just brings out that competitive animal in them, and I think Kerry know that's going to be coming the weekend. Yeah,
because I suspect I wasn't alone in suddenly thinking, Colm, of the semi-final of 2021, and that was the day of the Pat Spillane Sean Kavanagh argument, and there was just like a sense of mutiny in the air. So I mean, again, like that's me getting wrapped up in the mythology of the thing. I feel you're looking at this through far more sober eyes. You think Kerry are going to come through this one?
Not necessarily, Joe. Like Tyrone will feel, if they go through the matchups, and if you go back to that game of 2 years ago, they feel they have an awful lot of the players there that can do the same jobs man to man that they did back then. Like Conor Myler's a player I mentioned earlier on. I think he picked up Paddy Clifford that day and really took him out of the game. You could see something like that happening. I think in the middle of the pitch, they'll be really looking at going after the Kerry midfield. I think they'll feel like they have an advantage there as well. And let's be honest, the Kerry defence, I know, okay, granted the last 2 games Kerry have been better. Before that, they haven't looked overly impressive at the back. And you were talking about the Canavans there, Matty Donnelly. You know, them boys will be looking at that Kerry defence and fancying a cut at them. So I think the closer this game gets, the more my mind could be swaying towards Tyrone, but it's very early days. Look, Clifford is the big one. Can they keep him quiet? Or it's very hard to ask Arona McNamee to keep him quiet, but can they get the numbers around him, like Darran said there, bottle him up? And if they can do that earlier on and turn him over, could you imagine the boost that will give Tyrone and the crowd? And if they get up like that, they'll feed off that energy, and then that could make it very, very difficult for Kerry.
Yeah, I'll talk you into Tyrone by the end of the call, don't worry. So Darran, my sense from you is you didn't look at the Tyrone jersey then as a player and think, something's just off here. We don't have good days against these.
No, never actually, to be honest. And it was funny, like I would have lost more than I won, but
just that natural Kerry arrogance, is it?
Just cocky. No, I think it was a case of, you go into every game and you're kind of eyeing up the fellas you be marking, and first thing I'd always do is, can I look after my house first? Can I beat my man? And I'd always felt confident against the Tyrone defenders that I'd normally pick up against, and I'd always go, right, I have the pace in this fella. Yeah. I wasn't too bothered about the other stuff, and I always felt confident going in there. I always felt that they couldn't mark the pace. And so I always felt confident going in. And I loved the bit of nastiness from the crowd as well. I used to love the games up in Healy Park. If you're on the bench, you're coming on or you're coming off, or you're collecting a ball off the sideline, you'd always get a couple of smart comments. And the more you smiled and winked at them, the crosser they got. And I used to love that bit of crack in it. But no, look, sometimes rivalry can get a bit nasty, right? Yeah. But every game, like I suppose I knew going into every game that Tyrone were there going, right, this is our chance to show that, like I suppose they see Kerry getting praised all the time. They're going, we're as good as them, or we're better than them. We don't get the same praise. So they've that bit of a chip, and I love the fact that they had that chip. So
maybe rightly so, because I think you're actually encapsulating the rivalry here, where you're saying I probably lost more than I won against them, and yet no, we were better than them. Like, I mean,
it was one of them. There was a lot of games we were going. Like I came away from a lot of games going, how did we lose that game? Yeah. But they have this doggedness in them. They have this. It's a great characteristic, a great attitude. They just don't give up. And whatever it is about the Kerry jersey, it's that extra fire in the belly from. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the game. I think it'll be one of the first games now this year where the atmosphere will be electric inside Croke Park. It'll give it a proper championship feel. I think it's the first game. At the start, when I heard it was going to be the first game of the weekend, I was a bit surprised. But I think it's the right one to get the whole thing going. And like that, my one, I suppose, when I'm taking off the Kerry glasses, I'm there going, if Tyrone actually go at it and attack Kerry, they have the forwards to cause Kerry world the problem. But do they have the confidence in their own defenders to keep the Kerry forwards quiet? So I think if both teams actually went at it just hell for leather, concentrating on their own game, you could be in for an absolute cracker. But it's not going to be that type of end-to-end game. You can guarantee it. Colm said it there. Myler is definitely going to pick up Paddy Clifford. If you can nullify Paddy, you're probably thinking a lot of your supply into David is going to be nullified. So it's going to be an interesting one. Who picks up who? Like that Shawnee Shea looked like he was hitting form 2 weeks ago. It looked an awful lot lighter on his feet. I think that game will have brought him on confidence wise. Yeah. But like that, there's a lot of players in that Tyrone team who will be very confident going in this weekend.
Well, my memory, and it is just a memory at this stage, and it's a 2-year-old one, of the semi-final column, is that Tyrone absolutely destroyed Kerry on the break. Kerry wide open, left themselves very vulnerable, and you don't need to ask Tyrone twice. So you presume that's to the fore of Kerry minds. Not that they defended all that brilliantly against Mayo, for instance, in Killarney. Like we're asking, geez, will Tyrone rise to the occasion, and what can we read into their Donegal performance? It's not like Kerry are shooting the lights out here.
Yeah, and actually you're right about that game. And 2 years ago, my main memory of was Niall Morgan's long kickouts, where Kerry were often up the short one, but he was booming the ball 70, 80, 90 yards. And when they won that ball, Kerry were absolutely wide open at the back. And it'll be interesting to see, do they adopt something like that? Because actually in the final against us, they did something similar on a couple of occasions, and they scored one goal off it and got another goal chance off it. So it is a tactic that they tend to use. Yeah. And it's something they do tend to bring to Croke Park. So I think, I mentioned earlier on about Kerry's backline, how it won't fear the Tyrone lads. I think that's exactly what they look at hitting Kerry in the wide open. I think they'll start from their own kick out.
Salt Hill yesterday, Mayo 110, Galway 12 points. Like, on the one hand, the wind like it defined the dynamics of the game and probably made it this very intriguing situation, and was a 5-point lead for Galway enough at half time, and we'll find it in the second half, and it dictated the tactics. On the other hand, Darran, I was just thinking, this is such a pity, like it's ruining the game. I'd say as a player, you turn up in a win like this, you're just thinking, not that it makes it like gimmicky, but it sort of makes it a bit gimmicky.
Yeah, it definitely goes along with it's going to be a game of two halves, and very often you rather play in the rain, but it's easier playing the lashing rain than it is in a wind like that. I think games of that, you just need to take your chances, and Galway didn't. It sounds so basic, but they had so many opportunities to score and extend the lead. And then it comes down to your characters and your big game players, and something as simple as bringing on someone like Cillian O'Connor. The crowd erupted. He got one chance over the bar, took their chances. Like Mayo weren't good. That's the thing. The game was not a good game. The standard of football was awful. It was tense. I think Horan said after the game, no one's going to fear Mayo after it. But Galway, I'd say Joyce. If Joyce could have put on the boots himself yesterday to kick a couple of frees, he would have.
Yeah.
And there are things a manager can't equate for. Like, he can't take the blame. Some of the misses Galway had were just so poor. And it's not like they're not used to that pitch. It's not like they're not used to the wind. No, he did mention in his interview they didn't have much luck this year. I think the likes of Colm are going off. Obviously, it was a blow, but more so, not even his footballing, but his character. He's a guy who would demand the ball. I think Kelly was obviously struggling badly with the leg. And McDade tried hard, and Sweeney when he came on. But they're big players. When you needed them to come and get on ball and do something, we didn't see them. And I think in days of that where the conditions are hard and things aren't dropping for you, you need your characters. And I think Joyce was let down by a few characters.
If they are of a mind to analyse the game this week, Colm, and what's the point? So I don't suspect they will. Like, the wides are just inexplicably bad, really. I mean, shocking wides.
Yeah, really poor. And I think, Joe, that 15-minute spell before half-time, I think that's where the damage was done from a Galway point of view. I remember looking up at the scoreboard at one stage, 20 minutes gone, it was 7-3. Mayo hadn't scored in like 14 or 15 minutes. Mayo couldn't win their own kick-out. Galway had a huge amount of possession in their own half. Mayo couldn't get out of their half, and when it did, it never looked like they were going to score against that breeze. I was looking at the scoreboard with 15, 16 minutes to go, thinking this could be 8, 9, 10, 11 points at half time, because Galway had all the momentum, and Galway only scored 1 point in that 15, 16 minutes, which was absolutely crucial. And in that, Walsh misses a really bad free from the top of the D. He kicks another one a couple of minutes later off his left foot. Johnny Heaney misses one. The only score they get is McDade, and after that it's actually Mayo pushing to try and get a score before half time. They had 3 really bad wides themselves, granted against that breeze, but I think that's where the damage was done for Galway. 5 points at half time. I was actually delighted with it. I thought Mayo were in a really, really good spot, and to me they just needed to start the second half well, put the pressure on Galway straight away, because it would have felt like an awful long half for Galway if we could get that lead back straight away. I think Mayo had the lead gone in 8 minutes, something like that. And when you're a Galway player, you're coming back out from a green stick and that goal, the wind blowing in your face, you know you were really in trouble now. And I think that's what the Galway players would have felt, 10 minutes into that second half. Yeah,
Mayo blitzed them 1-5 to no score at the start of the second half. And you're right. I think it's interesting to mention those few minutes before half time. Mayo hadn't scored since the 7th minute, as you say. Galway had those dreadful wides. And from about maybe 28, 29 minutes, Mayo just played keep ball. Like Jordan Flynn at one point, almost on the end line, kicked the ball back 20 metres, and it went all the way back to Colm Reap on the 45. And then there was the Jason Doherty wide, the Owen McLaughlin wide, and the Kevin McLaughlin wide. Really bad wides, but it killed the clock, I suppose, is the point.
Yeah, for sure. And for Galway, you're probably looking at there, because at this stage you know how bad the breeze is, you know how difficult they're finding to get shots away. You're probably looking at pushing out a small bit more, trying to get a bit more contact in, because Mayo did manage that 5 or 6 minutes really, really well, actually. I think Galway lost their composure a small bit. Johnny Heaney hits a wide enough swing on Diarmuid O'Connor towards the sideline, which creates a small bit of a lead. Park Joyce is in, one of the Galway selectors is in, Aidan O'Shea is getting involved in that, giving a bit of lip as well. And, that kind of broke the Galway momentum, and it suited what Mayo were trying to do, was slow down the game. And you're right, then they held the ball for a couple of minutes, got a couple of shots away, and Galway looked like they were getting really frustrated, but I think it was up to Galway to really try and apply that pressure on, put as much of the squeeze on for the next couple of minutes and get a couple of more scores for half time.
So you alluded to it, Darren. Sean Kelly curtailed, Damien Comer probably more curtailed than we realised and doesn't make it out for the second half. And then all season we've waited for the All-Ireland final version of Shane Walsh to show up, and he's had a long and eventful year. Like, in a weird way, that final propelled him to a new status, you know, like an overnight sensation after nearly a decade, but it did just change who he was. And then it was his misfortune that the Kilmacud move happens a couple of weeks after the biggest game of his life, and it's a big talking point. Then he seems to go away to Australia, get away from it all, live his life as he's entitled to do. And I'm sure other things going on, you know, he's a young person juggling life. So you stir all that together, for those reasons or others, he just hasn't been at the pitch of it all year. And the last kind of vain hope we had in advance of this game was, well, he's a big game player and the bit of adrenaline might stir the juices. But you almost can't cheat it if you haven't been doing it. You know, maybe you can the odd time, but it's tough.
If you don't have the work put in, you're just not going to get the rewards. And I think, and this isn't that he wasn't working hard, he missed a lot of the year playing with the club. Right, they won All-Ireland. He got to celebrate it with strangers. But then he went off to Australia. Like, you need your holiday, but you're going off to Australia, you're missing a good chunk of training, and then you're coming back. There's so many games. You can't get that training. You can't get that load done. And I don't care. I've said this numerous times. I don't care if you're playing with Kilmacud, Crokes or Glenbeigh, Glencar, no matter what level it is, you're a way off into county level.
Darren, what is that load that needs to be done at the start of, you know, before you get into league or certainly championship? Is that like 6 weeks of just hard running 3 times a week? Is it 4 weeks? Is it 8 weeks? Well, what would you consider that's a really good load? I'm now set to peak come July.
It all depends, to be honest. Like, I know it's changed over the years, but you'd want a good 3 or 4 weeks of hard work done. Okay. Like, and I hated the long running, and I'd always, it gives you confidence. You'd always have the saying, Colin, there's money in the bank. Do you know, the hard work. So when things aren't going right, the one thing you can always guarantee is my legs can carry me around the pitch. And when you're not playing well, I can work my way into it. If that means tracking back, if that means being a link man, if that means just making runs and being a nuisance. Once you have that load done, you're grand. You can
see 3-4 weeks seems manageable to me. You almost wonder in hindsight if they could do it again. Would they say, do you know what, skip those couple of league games? Because Galway like pattered along grand in the league, but you know, it's just fine. Say, do you know what, let's get Walsh up to speed, sit out those games.
See, a lot of it is playing games, you're match fit.
Right.
You know, you can get through games, and but I don't know, it's a different level of fitness. You can play games, get yourself up. I just think you're trying to go from a certain level up to the level of inter-county, and like we said, the standard of football up to now hasn't been great, so he'll probably have to get through them in third or fourth year. Yeah. But it's the big games when things aren't going right. And the one thing you were kind of expecting of Shane, because he's such a good kicker of the ball, is frees are on the money anyway, so you can get through games, and at least you're guaranteed 5 or 6 points every game consistently. You know, you get away with it. But look, I was disappointed with him the last day. I just thought, look, anyone can have a bad day from shooting, you can miss frees, but the only time I saw him on the ball was to take frees. And with his pace and his power, the game was crying out for somebody to come up the shoulder, break the line, and the only one that was trying it on a consistent basis was McDade. Yeah. Conroy was trying to get on ball, in fairness to him, and Conroy is ploughing along for must be 12 or 13, 14 years now at this stage. Sweeney came on, but like, it's them moments. It's them moments where you want your big players to come, and I think Joyce be disappointed that he didn't get anything off him on the biggest day that they had so far this year.
I'll be interested to see what Joyce does, because I remember in an interview on Off the Ball a couple of months ago, he was saying, you know, he had sat down and thought very seriously about not coming back again around Christmas time, but almost his children were saying, but Dad, it's so much fun, you can't, don't you dare, and said, okay, we'll go again. And after a disappointment like this, you do wonder, Colm. On final word on Galway, and we'll push on and talk Dublin Mayo in a moment then. What a curious kind of year then. Very close last year to an All-Ireland, and then they were sort of like people's favourites as this year went along by default. I was talking with your old manager James Horn yesterday in advance of the game, and we were saying they almost just haven't messed up in the way that the other frontrunners have, so they're like last ones standing in our minds, but hadn't really done anything outstanding. So I don't know, it'll be interesting to see how big a blow this season is to Galway and what they've built thus far under Joyce, not least if he goes.
I think you're right, Joe. I think we were all sucked into that. I was as well, thinking, okay, you're based on the fact they get to the All-Ireland final last year. In fairness, they back it up by getting to a league final this year. Granted, they don't play that well, but they were missing a couple of key players in that league final against Mayo. And then they start the championship off, and for a long time they're the only team up until the last group stage that have won every game. So that's really where we're basing this on, and the fact that other teams' form wasn't great, let's be honest. So where Galway will go, look, Galway is still the makings of a very, very good team there. It's disappointed. Their season literally fell apart in 2 weeks. Yeah. The injuries, let's be honest. Kelly, Comer, 4 of their 6 defenders from last year. Comer as well into it was a huge knock to get, and it kind of reminded me of Mayo a bit last year, Jones, that they were struggling with injuries and just couldn't get boys right, and that's what it felt with for Galway yesterday, that they just couldn't get boys right at the right time when they needed them. You bring Silk Molloy back into that next year, you bring a fully fit Comer back, hopefully you get Shane Walsh back firing after maybe getting a bit of rest. They'd be as good as anything that's in there next year, but they'd be hugely disappointed with this year, there's no doubt about it. I think the most thing he'd just be disappointed was he felt he didn't get the rub of the green right when they needed it. At the same time, they probably own themselves to blame if they look after themselves in Armagh last week. They're through to a quarter final, and who knows what happens to them from then on. But it's fine margins, Joe. It's such fine margins. Matthew Tierney puts that goal chance away 2 minutes after Mayo get their goal. Maybe it's them that's playing Dublin next Sunday. So very fine margins.
We'll take a very short break. Gaelic Football on Off the Ball is in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. You can check out hashtag the toughest for more. Darran and Colm back with us in one moment.
Gaelic Football on Off the Ball
with AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out hashtag the toughest for more.
Gaelic Football on Off the Ball
with AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out hashtag the toughest for more.
You're welcome back. We have Colm Boyle and Darran O'Sullivan with us. So Dublin Mayo whets the appetite to say the least on Sunday at 4 o'clock at Croke Park. It's live on RTE. I would just as a last point, by the way, on the Galway game and Sean Kelly's ankle, I would commend Tomás O'Shea, Darran, for on the Sunday game not fudging it really. I think Sean Kavanagh might have kicked a touch, if we're being honest. The pictures are pretty obvious. It looks to most people, and Ryan O'Donoghue can absolutely come out and say we have it all wrong, and I think he should be afforded that opportunity if we do have it all wrong. But certainly looking at the pictures, I would be of the opinion that he looks down, he sees the ankle of Sean Kelly, the much publicised ankle of Sean Kelly, and he has a swipe. And Jocelyn and a few of them in it, fine. You hate to see something like that because it feels, if not quite premeditated, it feels like a very knowing thing to do and just nasty thing to do.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a fan of it. No, and I was saying it off here to Colm, I like Ryan O'Donoghue. I like his spikiness because as a scoring forward, you have to be, but there's no excuse. He seems to look down. It's a very blatant swipe. Be a lucky boy if it doesn't come up. But look, it's not. I always hated the handbags and all the shite that goes along with it. But look, that's nasty. No one wants to see it. And it's funny, I've seen a few clips on social media, and everyone's argument is always to show another clip, which something else should have happened. But he's look, maybe a bit of red mist came over him. I don't know him from Adam. So, but look, it was an ugly one. I think he was caught out, and Tomás, in fairness, wouldn't be the type to beat around the bush. He was fairly black and white with it. But look, it looked fairly obvious to me, and he was a lucky boy to get away with it.
The Colm, the stupidity of it is that there's no good outcome. In a way, he had the best outcome possible, which is Sean Kelly didn't have to leave the pitch because the ankle was given such a kick that he couldn't continue, and equally Ryan O'Donoghue didn't go down to 14 men and cost his side. Almost the best possible outcome, aside from not being caught at all, is it's picked up on TV, but he may well face a suspension now. Like, I'm sure if you sat down with Ryan O'Donoghue today and said, like, how would you feel really if Sean Kelly had to limp off the pitch, or how would you feel if you get a red card for something so stupid, you know? And again, red mist, not a good one.
Yeah. No, look, it was an unfortunate one for sure. You mentioned it there, Joe. There was two things in this. There's firstly Kelly's injury, which is there. Everyone knew about it. Ryan knew about it. And there was putting his own team at risk then of a fussy linesman looking at that. You know, maybe it doesn't need to be that fussy. I don't think there's a huge amount of contact made. I think that was the good thing about this, that it didn't seem to cause much pain on Kelly. It didn't affect him after that. But if there was a fussy linesman there and he sees that, he knows Kelly's injury, and you send Ryan O'Donoghue off there right at the start of the second half, like, what kind of effect has that in the game? You know, It could have completely turned the game in Galway's favour.
And you're remembered for that for a long time. Like, that's not something we see that often on a GA pitch. Like, if you're Ryan O'Donoghue, you don't have to be remembered for something like that, and you would be.
Yeah, you would. I'd say if you asked the majority of players, Dan, you're about the same. We've all done things in certain moments where the next day or a couple of days later you're thinking, yeah, if it was my time again, I wouldn't have done that. And you mentioned Ryan there. I think if Ryan had his time again, or if you asked him again today, but Ryan's a little warrior, and you know, he gives as much as he gets in games. He was getting plenty off. There was so much happening off the ball there yesterday, Joe. Literally, Sean Hurson did very well to keep the game under wraps, because there was boys pulling off each other all over. It was the most needle I've seen between Mayo and Galway for a long, long time.
Right.
You know, and why it mightn't reflected in the actual game itself. You probably had to be there to physically see it. There was lots going on. Unfortunately, there was that incident as well, but thankfully, nothing really of major consequence from it.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I don't know, will CCC look at it or not? That remains to be seen. Darran, you said you didn't think Mayo were great for all the you know, they never say die attitude, and here they are again. You didn't think the standard was especially good?
No, look, I think Mayo will come away from the game delighted to have won it, and will be able to pick 1,001 things that they can do better. Obviously the conditions weren't ideal and made things awkward, but the one thing you'll never question with Mayo over the last 15 years is attitude, and they had fellas who were willing to take the ball in awkward positions. They were willing to take on their man. They were willing to be patient. They need to be patient. And when they got their opportunities, they were just better in front of goal. I think they had more options to come off the bench as well. But yeah, look, they'll definitely go away from it. Delighted to have won, relieved that Galway probably left them in the game in the first half. But probably knowing we're going into this quarter-final in a great place, because a lot of us will write them off against Dublin, not because Dublin have been that great, but because they're going, geez, Mayo got through, but was it because Galway were so bad, or what was it? But like that, anybody watching that game will be going, Jesus. And I was one of them, building up the two boys, Mayo and Galway being like that, the best two teams at the moment to possibly win the All-Ireland. But on the evidence of the weekend, they both looked well off it. Okay,
and that's not just the wind and like Croke Park on a nice day against Dublin's very different level.
I think similar to Tyrone being delighted to get Kerry, I think Mayo will be delighted to get Dublin. I think it's a game that will kick them into gear as well. I think it's a game that all supporters were probably looking forward to as well. I think if they got a chance to pick the quarterfinals, and these are the games they'll be looking for. I think Mayo will look at Dublin as an opportunity. I don't think they'll probably look at the game and say we can't play as bad.
Okay.
And like that, they'll go in under the radar. I think Dublin, similar to Kerry in the last group game, they played really well. They looked like they'd supposedly got their training right, and they're about to peak at the right time. And I think a lot of people will write Mayo off due to the performance that they had the weekend. Colm,
I'm just curious, you'd have a great sense of what teams Mayo have gone with across the year. It was notable Conor Loftus, Matty Rowan, James Carr all come out, McLaughlin in, Owen and Kevin, Jason Doherty, Tommy Conroy. Fairly aggressive number of team changes, and they're changing their centre back for the biggest game of their season. So what's the logic here, and did it all work?
It worked because they won the game.
Yeah.
I think one of them was enforced. Bork O'Hora, I think McStay said he was sick the night before the game, so he gets pulled. So it probably would have been 3 changes. But look, I think Mayo, I felt going into the game that Mayo needed to mix it up. I think we've been very predictable, even with our team selection, the way we played for probably since the start of the league. Really, it's been pretty much the same 10 or 11, 12 players, core group of players that played. I was delighted to see Kevin McLaughlin starting. I have to say, I actually mentioned it during the week. If you remember Tyrone 2016, Stephen Rotter threw Alan Dillon in, centre forward marking Justin McMahon. Justin McMahon, all he wants to do is protect his full back line. He puts McLaughlin in at 11, just marking John Daly, who, let's be honest, hasn't been really used to marking anyone for the last couple of years. And McLaughlin gets on so much ball, kicks a score in the first half, creates a score. And I actually wouldn't have taken him off. They took him off 10 minutes in the second half. I actually would have left him on because he handled a huge amount of ball at the start of the second half. But, you know, I think Mayo probably look at this game again against Dublin, and they'll probably feel like they need more changes. You might see the likes of Matty Rowan maybe get a bit more fresh legs coming into the pitch as well, because there's no doubt about it, Joe. Mayo playing like they did yesterday, as workman man as it was, you know, the effort was unbelievable, the shift they put in. It won't be good enough against Dublin. And I would have said the same if Galway won that game yesterday. It wouldn't be good enough to beat Dublin. So that's the challenge ahead now for Mayo the next week. I think a big area Dublin will look at, you're probably going to say it there, Joe, is Mayo's kick out and how they got smothered in that half. Probably both halves, to be honest. Mayo won 9 out of 36 kickouts in the game. If something like that happens on Sunday, there's only one winner, because Dublin will get the score in return from that kick out. So Mayo really, they're not going to do much this week, but whatever they have to do, they're going to have to hone in on that for sure. And has that been a problem generally for them this year? It has, Joe. It was a major problem against Cork, especially when Cork got on top. In that last 20 minutes, we found it very hard to win our own kick out. It was a problem against Roscommon the first day. And if you remember, we were talking about it, how Roscommon really, we couldn't win enough of our own kick outs, especially against that breeze, to really put Roscommon under pressure. Yeah. So it has been a bit of a problem. And in that, like Diarmuid O'Connor yesterday was just absolutely sensational. It's more of a team problem I think we have. But there's absolutely no doubt Dublin will look at that, and they look at Colm Reap, who probably struggled a small bit, but in fairness to him, gets one really difficult kick out off towards the end where we get the last score from. James Carr scored. But don't be surprised if you see 12, 13 Dublin players inside the half early on, and they're really trying to annihilate our kick out. Something similar to what they did to Louth in the first day. I know the same threat isn't there against Louth, but I think they're going to really go after it early and try and unnerve Mayo early on. Scary place to be with 80,000 there, and lots of them dubs as well. Is Diarmuid O'Connor a freak athlete, by the way? Like in the running, would he be thereabouts? Yeah, because I remember a couple of years ago at Newbridge, he must have ran about 40k in that game. I remember thinking, this is outrageous. And it's funny you mentioned Newbridge, Joe. I was thinking about it on the way home, and I was thinking that's probably Diarmuid's best game in a Mayo jersey since Newbridge in 2018. We lost that night, but he was sensational. Yeah. Like, he sent out a message yesterday to the Mayo players that I'm going to do everything in my power today to make sure we're not beaten. I need you to come with me. And in fairness, he got boys to respond to that. Paddy Durkin was sensational. Loads of boys rode in behind him. But he was, even in the first half when Mayo weren't playing well, Joe, he was the one who was trying to keep them in the game. He was getting them up the pitch. He was winning kickouts. He was making turnovers. And I think he turned over the first two Galway attacks at the start of the second half and really set the tone. He put in some shift. The thing for Mayo is they're going to need to do the exact same thing Mark and Brian Fenton now the next day. I know, 7 days later as well, so hit the ice bath, Diarmuid, and rest up. In a parallel to Tyrone Kerry, what does a Dublin jersey represent for Mayo players, your teammates? What does that do to them? I think it'll excite them. Fear? A sense of a hoodoo? Yeah, but at the same time, last time we played 2 years ago, we bet them. You know what I mean? So, a lot of teams, a lot of players in that team are still playing for Mayo and Dublin. Granted, there's a few changes. Obviously, there's change in management for us. I think, I said last week about the Galway draw, how that was probably the draw Mayo needed to focus the mind after a bad defeat the day before. Yeah. And maybe after a big win against Galway, maybe Dublin was exactly what they needed the following morning to refocus the mind. Granted, it's going to be a big ask. We physically don't know how good Dublin are, Joe. We probably won't know till 6 o'clock next Sunday really how good Dublin are. I think the last 3 games they've won, if you take the draw against Roscommon out of it, they've won by a combined total 53 points. So they really haven't been in the wars yet in this year's championship, and that's where Mayo are really going to have to look to bring this game, bring it down to the last 20, make it into an absolute war, into a chaos, and see can you do enough then to win the game from there. I think if they feel they can get the game to the last 10 or 15 minutes and they're right there, I think they'll feel they'll be in a really good place to finish the job.
Well, you've taken the words out of my mouth. I would presume, Darren, Mayo have to think that way, that Dublin haven't had to get into the trenches once this year. Let's set the most ferocious pace we can possible, and let's sustain it, and let's see if they've done the training and they've worked as hard as they need to work here. That, like, chaos is the word associated with Mayo, but like never more so than a croaker against Dublin, who like are ripe to be caught.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the kind of game it does suit Mayo, and I think this Dublin team have a lot of changes, and they have been coasting up to now. So I think Colm's right. If you can get this game into the last 15 minutes where Mayo know that they've been in proper championship matches up to now, they know they have it in the legs, they'll have the bit of confidence that they've had to dig deep and win ugly games. Dublin haven't had to do that yet this year. So it's going to be a big battle. But like that, it's all about the first 15 minutes. Set the pace for Mayo. I think it'll be interesting to see who picks up Aidan Shea. It was only small little bits and pieces in the game the last day. Even his contribution for the goal, it looks so simple. But if they can start using him close to goal with the pace that Mayo brought into the game for the first 15 minutes of the second half, with runners coming with the footballers that they have, he could have a huge input in the game the next day, close to goal. Even looking at the changes Mayo made the weekend, and you're looking at the subs they're bringing on, Enda Hesse and Cillian O'Connor, Matty Rowan, that's just they're 3 huge players that not only do they lift the crowd, they lift their teammates. But if you're one of the Dublin players like the Galway and you're after putting in a shift mark and whoever it is, and then you're seeing these fellas come on, it's a killer blow, because you're going, right, you give Cillian O'Connor half a yard, he's probably the most intelligent footballer in the country. I always said that. He got me black carded a couple of years ago, but I forgave him. But he's so intelligent and he's just ruthless up there. And obviously, like Matty Rowan, maybe he'd gone through a bit of a bad patch, but I think he's one of the top midfielders in the country. Yeah. I think he'll be itching to get back in there. And I think they need to start someone like that the weekend. So it'll be interesting. But I think, like that, we said it, I think Mayo will be absolutely licking their lips to get up there and put in a performance, and they won't fear Dublin. And I think we still don't know how good Dublin are. No,
that is the really interesting thing. And we're building up Mayo. I'm sure Dublin fans are saying, sorry, is this the same Mayo that Cork beat? Steady on, everyone, like what's with the Mayo vibe here? Colm, I want an honest answer to this question. So okay. I have no doubt in 30 years you'll all be at golf classics and talking about the good old days and best friends, but the Mayo relationship with that Dublin team, like that rivalry, like, not, full-blooded. There are GPS units being thrown. There are Dublin players dragging Mayo players to the ground in the final moments of finals to guarantee there's no chance of an equaliser. Like, if you're all out in coppers and then, the Dublin lads walked in, what is the deal there?
Thankfully, I never used to make coppers, Joe. I've gone home by then. Unbelievable rivalry. Intense. That's probably the best word I could use it now. Intense. I don't think they liked us, and we certainly didn't like them. Right. You know what I mean? I think that's what made the rivalry. It's frustrating from our behalf that we never got the big win on the big day against them. We bet them in 2 semi-finals in 12 and 21, but never got the ultimate one. They ultimately did the jobs on the bigger days, but it was an unbelievable rivalry. But Jesus, Joe, when you look back, it was only when you were tired and you look back in games, and I read an article on the best games that we played today over the last 10 years against Dublin, like unbelievable memories. But for the boys in Mayo and Dublin now going into Sunday now, they'll be looking to create their own memories going forward.
I think you've sidestepped that quite nice.
It's lovely. political answer.
Intense. Great respect for each other.
Yeah.
I never made coppers.
Right. Well, look, the weekend is set up beautifully. I have clock's gone against me. My fault. Like a minute almost each for the other two games on. Cork Roscommon, 1 point win for Cork. First 30 minutes, this was all on Roscommon's terms. They were keeping the ball for long periods. Cork almost impatient when they got it back. Roscommon picking them off. I thought, God, Cork are just going to lose their composure here. But in fairness, they really upped the ante just before half time, scored a couple of crucial points, pressed up on Roscommon kickouts, and then kept that pace into the second half and won out. So they have Derry next. Derry probably like a better version of Roscommon defensively and also even with the ball as good as Roscommon were at times with the ball. So that's a tasty enough game as well, Darren. I don't know what your sense is of Cork.
Yeah, look, I think they started very poor. I think Enda Smith actually missed a goal chance. I think if that goes in, it's game over, ball burst. But they reacted really well. Do you know what? I said last week, they have pace and they have power. And in fairness, it's very hard to adjust kind of midway through a game or midway through a half. And they did that, which shows progress. But yeah, I think they're going to go in. And I think they'll give Derry enough of it. They have the pace and the power to stick with him. Whether they'll have that bit of experience that I think Derry have gained over the last couple of years will be interesting. But they definitely won't be able to start the game like they did last week against Roscommon. No. I think Derry would have them finished off early. They'd get goals. And I think Roscommon probably a bit disappointing. They showed so much progress throughout the league, and I think they fell a bit flat. I think I'm not going to say fear, but they were definitely not as proactive in their attacking. I think they were a bit slower with it in their build-up play, and I think that kind of played into Cork's hands as well. Fairness to Cork, they are tackling hard, they're working hard, and I think Tomas mentioned it actually. Give the Cork public something to cheer, and they'll get behind them. And it did sound like there was a good atmosphere in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Now it'll be interesting to see, do they travel to Croke Park to support them? But like that, the Cork players will feed off that. But I think, look, they're going in the right direction, and I think they'll feel that there's a scalp there to be got. But Derry, in fairness, have coped with everything well so far this year. They seem to a team just going through the steps, stepping up nicely. So it's going to be an interesting one. But Rebels Abu, I wouldn't be too surprised if they pulled off a shock. Yeah,
since you said they were rubbish, really, they've been actually quite good.
Yeah, it tends to happen. I'm going to say Kerry are useless now at the end of this.
Kildare pipped by Monaghan and Tullamore. They were leading by a point at half time. 4 of their 6 forwards had scored at that stage. There seemed to be more fluency about the Kildare attack. They were counter-attacking very well. There's something interesting about Monaghan, isn't there, Colm? And it's almost like a self-fulfilling thing. Both sides are aware that when things get a bit tight, they have a knack of getting out of trouble, and they've done it in the league so many times, and it's spilled into Saturday a touch. It's funny watching the coverage on GAA Go. Aaron Kernan, particularly at half time, was just making the point that you could see why both sides were at a level and have a ceiling. Yeah. Several goal opportunities passed up on both sides just by not seeing the pass or not making the right decision. Both of them actually could have killed the game off and not have it go down to the 74th minute.
Yeah, I think Aaron's right in his observations there, although I think Kildare really, and I know Lynn Ryan has a go at the referee afterwards, I think Kildare wanted themselves to blame in this one. I thought for long stretches they were the better team here. I think they're 11-1-5 up, Joe, on the 40th minute, and they only score, is it 2 points, 2 or 3 points for the rest of the half, you know what I mean, for the rest of the game, for the last half an hour. And within that, they've so many opportunities, so many goal chances. Kerwin hits the bar, rebounds to Flynn. He puts it wide. The big moments they didn't take. And I just felt watching it, if you leave this Monaghan team in the game, they will come at you because they're going to get their purple patch, and that's exactly what they did. And in fairness to Monaghan, they hung in the game, just what you'd expect them to do. And really down the stretch, when it came to the last 5 minutes, I only really felt like there was going to be one winner, even though it was so tight. But McCarthy, in fairness to him, kicks 2 of the last 3 points for Monaghan. They get the big scores, and it leads them into a really interesting game on Saturday against Armagh. Because as we know, when 2 northern teams meet, in Croke Park, they're very, very hard to call. I'd have a slight favourite for Armagh, but I think Armagh are slightly the better all-rounded team. But Monaghan, I think their limitations probably will catch them out in Croke Park. But in fairness to them, you couldn't rule them out either.
On the Glenryan comments, Darren, so I would agree it didn't cost them the game. Like, there was a point where on 41 minutes Kildare got the softest free imaginable to go 3 points up, and Keane Ward said, we're sort of 2-2 on bad refereeing decisions here, and in the end Kildare ended up the right side of a 13-9 split on the frees. So Glenryan afterwards, talking about the referee Jerome Henry, who, it seemed, to be fair, didn't have a great game in most people's eyes, but he said, funny enough, someone said to me this week that this man is out of his depth, and he proved that tonight, that he was out of his depth. David Goff was on the sideline, equally scratching his head on the line with me on occasions. Like, that's going a long way further than he didn't have a great game, or I was disappointed with the referee. Saying this fella's out of his depth, you're basically saying this guy should never get a game again, he's no good. I don't know, like, I understand heat of emotion, you're frustrated, but one, referee didn't cost Kildare the game. Two, it's the second time Glenryan now is talking after these defeats and complaining about things. I don't know, I that goes too far for me.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that as well. That's a bit much. Anyone can have a bad game. Players can have, managers get it wrong, referees have bad games. But it did seem, when you're bringing up stuff like you're getting texts during the week, and this fella, you are putting him under even more pressure. And look, he didn't have a good game, but you have to look at yourself as well. You have to look at your team. He didn't cost you the game. They didn't play well enough. Again, it was another game where they had an amount of chances to win the game. Decision making was wrong. Taking the scores, they were just off it. But I don't like that. Like, I've seen that, like, that has happened twice now with him. Heat of the moment, yeah. But you have to learn your lesson after the first one and go, right, maybe I need to take a breather and say, look, I'll talk to you in 10 minutes, cool off. But no, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. You just come across as quite bitter, a bit juvenile. I'm surprised, to be honest, that he made the comments, because, look, the referee didn't go out to have a bad game. These things happen. But when you're bringing in stuff like, I was expecting him to have a bad game, and he's out of it, it's a bit much. And do you know what? You're not going to get any supporters for that. And I'd hope that he's waking up this morning feeling like a bit of an idiot, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a degree of, like, I was talking to someone during the week, it's like the politician was talking to the voter column, and like it just everyone thinks this guy's rubbish.
Yeah, look, I know Jerome, he's a Mayo referee. He won't need Glenryan to tell him, or Vinny Corey to tell him, or Sean Kavanagh or Tomas O'Shea that he didn't have a good day at the office. But the key point is, he didn't decide the outcome of the game either way. I don't believe. I think any of the decisions he gave, I think they were pretty much evened out throughout the whole half. If anything, I think Kildare got a couple of really soft ones in the second half when they looked like they were going to push on, so it had no effect in the game whatsoever. If I was Glenryan, I'd nearly be looking at, why didn't I get Jimmy Hyland on the pitch earlier? I know Jimmy Hyland hasn't had a great year, but they've only scored 2 points in that second half. He brings them on in the 72nd minute. I don't know what he wants them to do at that stage. I'd have him in with 10 or 15 minutes to go, because he could have actually been a match winner for Kildare.
Okay, fellas, colours to the mast point. I just want one word here, and we know what both your hearts think in certain instances, but I only want the head answers. So Saturday 3:45 on GAA Go, Kerry Tyrone. Winner is, Colm?
You've talked me into it, Joe. I'll go Tyrone.
And then the man who, like, we were better than them, even though I have a losing record against Tyrone, Darran O'Sullivan.
Kerry.
No, shocked. Armagh, Monaghan, and Colm.
I'd fancy Armagh this one. Yeah, I think they're the better team here.
Yeah, Darren. Sorry, Colm, go on.
Yeah, no, sorry, Joe. I just think Armagh have to see this as an absolutely huge opportunity to really make a big step forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree with Colm. I'd be going Armagh. I just think they have more going for them.
Derry Cork then on the Sunday, Colm.
I think Derry, I don't think it'll be 100% straightforward, but I think Derry will win this, yeah.
Yeah, Darren?
Yeah, I'm not just copying Colm's answers, but yeah, I agree with that as well.
Well, you can go first then. Dublin, Mayo, Darren?
I'm going Dublin. I don't think it'll be straightforward. I just think Mayo just haven't shown me enough. I think they're going through too many periods of long stretches of the game without scoring. and I think Dublin just will eat that up.
Yeah. Head answer only, please, Colm.
Look, Darren makes a fair point there. The stretch of the long periods we're going out without scoring is a major concern. But I go. I think we'll win it after extra time. We'll take it all the way.
Discount what Darren said about Kerry Tyrone and discount what Colm said about Dublin.
Following Alan Dillon into politics.
Fellas, great stuff. We are very much up and running now with the football championship. Was great, which is great. Darren, Colm, thanks, lads. We'll talk next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
fellas.
Cheers.
Gaelic football on Off the Ball in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out hashtag the toughest for more.
Gaelic football on Off the Ball
with AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out hashtag the toughest for more.